good.
All right, so now that we're actually recording, the film that I'm super excited about that Lauren saw this week is A Quiet Place. So we're gonna kick off with that. I for a second time for everybody watching, they don't know. She's gonna tell us about A Quiet Place.
Take two
Yes.
for the third movie, which happens to be a prequel. So Quiet Place came out a week and a half ago, saw it on Tuesday with some women in my neighborhood. Fantastic film. I didn't know going into it if I was going to like it because John Krasinski, who is, I believe, the director and
Mhm.
definitely has some involvement when it comes to the production, crushed it with the first two. I was excited because it takes place in New York City. You see how this apocalyptic event starts from the point of view of the protagonist, Lupita Nyong'o, and she plays the character Sam, who has cancer, and her and those that are living in this hospice center or center for cancer patients go on a trip to Manhattan to see a show where they then run into Diamond,
Jaimin.
Diamond. Thank you, Diamond.
Yeah, demon.
Diamond.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
He's a heck of an actor, though.
Yes.
Yes.
And his family, and he is in the second Quiet Place where he runs into Emily Blunt. So for those of you who haven't seen the first two films of A Quiet Place, please put it on your list. Excellent films. It's interestingly enough, Stephen King did an interview or was, I guess, reported on it, and he gave John Krasinski like a thumbs up, telling him like that's a legit film. And that was one of the biggest honors that John Krasinski said in an interview. Stephen King's telling me I did a fantastic job. Props to me. So he does it again, in my opinion. Not that I have any type of opinion compared to Stephen King, but A Quiet Place Part One or Day One, excuse me. It really is the first or real like beginning of this apocalyptic event that changes things in the future, even though it takes place in like modern day. It's in New York City. They go to New York City. They're at the show, and then all hell breaks loose. You see the alien-like extraterrestrial creatures, whatever we want to call them, invade Manhattan, and everything just goes up similar to like War of the Worlds. They take over. The beginning scene, they talk about the average decibel of New York City is 90. So just to put that in perspective of just how loud of a city it is and how even more so, I think, I don't know, I wouldn't say dangerous it is to be in New York, but there's more sound, so it probably puts you in a position where you're more at risk versus perhaps another place elsewhere. So it's giving you a very different setting than the first two, where Emily Blunt and John Krasinski are in the suburbs, or if not a rural area.
Mhm.
This takes place where you're in the epicenter of sound. So that's very cool to see. Lupita Nyong'o's character, Sam, has a very strong attachment to her cat.
You can't have a cat in here. It's a service cat.
Who wanders throughout the film and puts Lupita Nyong'o's character and then this gentleman that we meet who plays the character of Eric, played by Joesph Quinn, who is a British law student, in some very interesting situations when the cat will wander around and will accidentally thrust something into the air, or just they put them in like some very interesting situations throughout the film. So you think at some point you're like, they're gonna die. Like, how are they gonna survive this? And of course, I mean, I'll let you watch it and make your own opinions. But overall, very great film. I'm curious to hear. I think you guys mentioned that you both have seen at least the first one, if not the first two. But what do you guys think of A Quiet Place in general?
Who's going first?
Go ahead.
I said to Kevin, and I think Kevin was more sympathetic. I'm like, why the hell are you having kids? Like the first movie, they have a baby, and I'm like, okay, first of all, you had this baby like after the invasion. Why? And Kevin's like, survival of the species. I'm like, yeah, cool, but I don't know, man. Like,
Not just that, like the other thing is too, is that I'm pretty sure at some point, depending on how far into this apocalypse you are, contraception's gone.
And
Like,
just so that's why. I mean, again, we don't want to like tangent here, but I'll just say, and
you
so
know,
I'm like, I feel like my whole thing when I watch movies is watching people do stupid shit. So right now, I'm already thinking you need to euthanize that cat. I'm sorry, but if that cat's putting you in precarious positions, euthanize it. Sorry, like throw it in some water.
I kept on saying that throughout the film. Like, why the hell is she keeping this cat around?
Thank
Like
you.
the cat's gonna kill her and everyone around them. In like one of the first scenes when everything, shall I say, the beginning of hell breaking loose and the aliens starting to take over, the cat's just like wandering around in the theater and they're all like quiet and cat's like and then like starts going into I guess the lobby of the theater and Lupita Nyong'o's like, "Oh my cat," and I would have been just like, "Fuck it, leave it, bye." Like this creature's gonna get you, as much as I love cats, it's gonna get you killed, but
yeah,
she runs after it.
it really depends on the person, but there are definitely people where that is equivalent to a child, right? Like,
Yes, but
It was
and,
though.
and
It was her
so
emotional support animal.
yeah,
I mean, she is dying of cancer, and this support animal is like everything to her. So she's like, this cat can't die.
So to me, it's like, that I like, it's consistent. Like, I get it. Like, you have to have that tension, right? So in the first movie, it was the baby. Forget it was in the
Yep.
second movie. And now we're going back to like the cat. And it's kind of like, how do we persist? How do we have as normal a life as possible in this effed up situation? And I'll never forget that what's so heartbreaking in that first movie, of course, is like, I guess the deaf daughter gets the boy, like the littlest boy, killed because I think she plays with the thing after they said leave the fucking toy in the toy store, brings it anyway, and then of
The
course
car or truck or
no,
whatever
I
it
think
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
space shuttle or
sirens,
something. Yeah,
it was something, and she's
Oh,
playing
yeah,
with it,
yeah.
and then it gets the kid killed. So it's like, so I think they almost have the baby just to like replace the lost boy. That's the way I
Yes.
saw it.
sort
And
of.
then
Yeah.
I'm also like, she's stepping on, and again, I'll never forget the stepping on the nail part, right? When she's like going down the stairs and then the nail goes through her foot and then she has to be like the whole time. Like,
Yep.
so all I gotta say is those movies are dope in that it's like you are literally on the edge of your seat. It's super stressful, and it's just like, damn, like that. And
Yep.
the Silo, like, I just it's all about the persistence of the human spirit. That's what I see, and the resilience of it. And even when they figure out how to fuck them up, but I think it was the
The
girl who figured
hearing
it out.
aid. Yeah, when her
Yeah,
hearing
yeah,
aid feeds back because
yes.
the aliens are so sensitive to sound, the feedback from the hearing aid is like super, like just nasty to
Yep.
them.
Yep.
So that's my thought. I'm a fan. So yeah, have you go.
Yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy the first film. They did a fantastic job, and they walk you through some of the foundations that you learn later in the movies, like how water and thunderstorms are like a natural safety net where they can speak at a normal, I guess, decibel, right? Or even scream. They have one scene where there's both screaming. This law student who is the character of Eric and Sam, played by Lupita Nyong'o, are just letting out just a loud scream just at the same time when you hear thunder pounding against their window. So it's interesting in how they learn that this can be almost like a superpower for them in order to get things done. And sort of like when Emily Blunt gives birth at the right time when John Krasinski, I believe he makes some sort of sound on the farm around that time to match that, knowing that if there's something louder outside or nearby, then your voice or action or something like that, they're just going to pick on the louder decibel, and that's what they're going to target.
Yeah.
So that's something that they approach. And then the other funny thing, I was talking with a friend about a week or two ago about the original Patsy's, and I don't know if you gentlemen are big pizza places. Andrew, I feel like we've talked about Patsy's before, potentially
I've been
just in
there.
the
I'm a
past.
fan.
The
Yeah.
original Patsy's, though, I think
Is
it's
it on
like
the
in
upper?
Harlem.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like East Harlem. So throughout the film, Lupita Nyong'o is on a mission to get pizza, and throughout, like even during this natural or unnatural disaster, this apocalyptic event, she's like, "Fuck it, I'm getting pizza." And that's all she wants to do. And everyone's like, like everyone's going south to get to water because these creatures can't swim. Yeah, fuck it. I'm going to Patsy's to get like the last pizza in New York. And she takes her cat to go get it. And this law student, Eric, is like, are you dumb? Like, you're gonna die. And she's like, no, I won't, like, I'm gonna die anyway. Like, I might as
Yeah.
well have pizza. So I think that it's also like a story of living your, literally YOLO, but in this case,
Yeah.
living till your final hour because it's going to be up soon
Yeah, I was
in
gonna
that
say
scenario.
it sounded like the more you're talking about it, the whole cancer thing comes into play because
Mm.
once you're already dying,
Mhm.
maybe the world can kill you sooner, but at the same time, who gives a shit? You're gonna die. So if you love your cat that much, then if the cat is gonna get you killed, like you are still gonna die. You don't want to give up the things that you love, which
Right.
she takes it as extreme as pizza. Like she wants to go
Right.
get a pizza because she fucking wants pizza. Like
Exactly.
it's not going to take away what she has left, no matter how bad the world is. And
Yeah.
so she'll fight for these things that she wants to get. And if that fight kills her, she's all right. Now, the person that's probably the idiot is probably Joesph Quinn, right? If you're hanging out with a girl that won't get rid of her cat and wants to run for pizza in the middle of the end of the world, maybe you don't need to hang out with that girl anymore. But
She
like,
tries shooing him off in the beginning, and I think he's just so desperate and alone
mm,
since his family's all in the UK. He's like, this is some like a life, a human life that's passing by after everyone's kind of gone into hiding or has already died. So he just kind of follows her, and at that point, I think he forms some sort of feelings towards her and emotions that he just wants to help her during this time, and he grows this a bit of an attachment towards her and wants her to enjoy her final days, months, or whatever time she has left. And I think that's kind of where his character development comes into play, and you get to see that over time. But yeah, guys, I really liked it. I highly
yeah,
recommend you guys see it. If you enjoyed the first two, you'll certainly enjoy this one. I wasn't sure what to think going in, but great job, John Krasinski. You did it again, my friend. I don't know how more films will go. I think you should stop at 3, but this was great. Getting this crazy story, throwing it in New York City, and then showing how it really just started to grow and go from there. I think it was a really great job at just detailing the beginnings.
Couple things I want to say really quick. Joe Quinn's having a moment. I
yes,
think that between Stranger Things, which he killed it in,
mhm,
this, and he's going to be in Fantastic Four next year. Like these are all major, big, like stuff. That's number one. Number two, Alex Wolff. I like him. I've always seen him in two
Yes.
things. And that was the first time I saw him was Old. Didn't really recognize him there, but I remember him in Old. Then I saw him in Hereditary. He did that before Old.
mhm.
And he was just phenomenal in Hereditary. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in this movie. And then Jamin Hansu again, like you said, I think you said he was in the second film. So
Yep.
I'm going to
He
ask you
comes
the
back.
ties, between this film and the other two. And you know what? I don't want to know. Like, I mean, at first I'm
Yeah, I'll let you do.
just, yeah, I want to be satisfied by the ties.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank
It
you.
was good to see a familiar face from the second film, or I guess you would call it the second film. Yeah, second film, which is really like the third in chronological order.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll let you finish that. And yes, Alex Wolff is good. He plays the nurse.
Word up.
Yeah,
Cool.
so awesome.
All right. Well, I'll go real quick then, sticking with things that are relatively current that came out this week. I watched the new Beverly Hills Cop movie, Axel F, on Netflix. Now, I remember watching the trailer for this when it came out a month or two ago, and just watching the trailer, and I was like, oh, okay, this is just the same movie again. And so like I wasn't super excited about it. But I had some time and I got the alert that it dropped on Netflix and I was like, I'm just gonna watch it. I've got time in the morning while I'm doing stuff to throw on a movie and catch it. And I found myself, even doing dishes and doing other stuff around the house, stopping and paying attention to the movie. And for the most part, the movie really works. Like, yes, it is definitely a retreading of probably mostly the first movie, in a lot of ways, at least the feel of it. He's very much found his way back into the same into the character, like in the right way. Like this feels like a real continuation of Axel Foley from the first, first two Beverly Hills Cop movies. You start to see old characters show up. What's his name? Judge Reinhold shows up. The guy that plays his old chief shows up. Paul Reiser's there. So you got a bunch of people that there's history with here, and they all work. The only character that I didn't really like, I don't know what it was about her that bothered me, but was the daughter. I didn't like. I don't know if it was her acting I didn't like, or maybe it's just the character. But I didn't like her a ton, but it didn't take it enough away from the movie for me to care. Even though, funny enough, she was a major part of the movie, I just it was fine that she was there. Like I wasn't bothered by her. What's his name showed up from
Bronson Surge.
No, yes, he did, Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of the actor he was in the last Batman movie. He took over as Batman in the Christian Bale Batman.
Joe
Yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah. He plays a pretty significant part in this. Kevin Bacon plays, kind of the big bad in this. And,
I see Paul Reiser's in here.
yeah. Yeah. And it's a Beverly Hills Cop movie, right? So it's predictable. I mean, this follows very much an 80s formula. Like this is an 80s movie modernized and has the same, level of ridiculous. Like it's funny because I think this is the kind of thing that Michael Bay tries to copy with the Bad Boys films and other things. But this works better. The opening scene is him, busting somebody, and then they're driving through. I think they're in Detroit because he hasn't come back to LA yet. He's in Detroit. He steals a garbage truck, and I mean he's just fucking up downtown Detroit, just running into stuff, chasing these bad guys, and doing all this stuff. And yeah, it's crazy, it's over the top, it's stupid, like, but it works. Like he's funny the whole time, but he's not. Eddie got a little over the top a little bit later in his career when he was doing like the I have to play every single character in my movie guy. And
Petty Professor.
Yeah, and he was a little more subdued. He was like, he was having a good, like, I feel like he had fun making this movie. And I think that's a big deal. And I think, when you see Judge Reinhold show up, you're like, oh man, he looks old, man. Like Judge Reinhold aged, but he had fun making it. Taggart, the guy that plays Taggart, I don't remember the actor's name. Yeah. Like he had fun in his part, even though it was a little smaller. And it was just, I mean, it was fun. Like if you've seen the original Beverly Hills Cop movies, I feel like everybody says, oh, Beverly Hills Cop 3 sucked. Like, I feel like this is like a thing where you could watch Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2 and just watch this.
Yes.
You'd be totally fine. But I do think Beverly Hills Cop 3 introduced his daughter as like a human being. Like I don't think he had a kid in the first two. But yeah, like it really is just a great continuation. The action is all there. The wit that Axel Foley has in general is there. His thing just of doing whatever the fuck pops into his head to make things work comes in. The couple of scenes that he has with Bronson Pinchot are awesome. Like they were a lot of fun just to see him back as Surge. Because if you ever watched Perfect Strangers or anything else, like Bronson Pinchot's a little over the top, but like Surge was hilarious. Like Surge was so funny, and to get that back and see that work was a big deal too. And it was just a lot of fun. Like I don't know what else to say about it other than it really was what it needed to be, and not any more and not any less. Like it just really worked in that world. And I, having finished it, I kind of was like, oh, if they do another one, I'll be all right. Like I would watch one more. He's not, he might be getting too old for that shit. Like what's his face from Lethal Weapon,
Danny
but
Glover.
which they're making another one.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're
Really?
making another Lethal Weapon like right now.
Wait, but wait. With Homeboy, who's been like pretty much like canceled
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
nuts.
yeah, yeah. I think he's the one writing it.
Mel Gibson.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
Well, you know what? I feel like in this America, like at least half of America is actually like, yeah, go Mel. So maybe it'll do fine,
you know what though? Like it's one of those things where he has stayed out of the limelight long enough
Yes.
that I think he may not be
Yeah.
forgiven necessarily, but like at the box office, if he's in something, and especially if it's a continuation of something he was known for and that people loved until they kind of again went a little screwy, um, he might be all right. The smart thing to do would be do exactly what they did here and go straight to Netflix or straight to streaming.
Yes.
Because then you don't have to deal with the box office. Like Kevin Costner just left
Yellowstone,
and he put out a movie called Horizon, and he put $100 million into this movie, and it bombed at the box office. But like he knew it was going to bomb at the box office. He even said so. He's like, this isn't like I don't know if it wasn't his idea or what to release it at the box office. But the one thing is that everybody that was watching it is loving it. Like it's almost, I think it's like a 3 hour movie, and there's a bunch of people that have gone to see it twice. Like people that are seeing it are loving it. It's not a movie that people are generally going to go see. Like it would be better on a streaming service. And so, we're in that age now where you have to look at your film and really consider where you're releasing it, because more and more film, like something just came out that actually did okay in like the first 2 weekends, and then they're like, yeah, we're going to release it on digital at home in 3 weeks, and you're like, what the shit? Why even put it in the theater? Like, I guess you get a little bit of money and a little bit of hype, and then you bring it home where people have to rent it for a while, and maybe that's the new movement, right? Is you have a few weeks in the theater, then you charge people to purchase or rent it before it finally hits a free streaming service, like some of the other movies. But I don't know. The movie industry is reeling right now at the theaters. I think the big blockbuster this year is going to be Deadpool Wolverine.
Yes.
Which will be impressive because it's a rated R movie, so that's going to definitely make it
records.
A little harder to make a lot of money on, but it's still going to make its money.
No, it's going to make a shit ton.
Yeah. But I don't know what else is out there. Like, I don't know what else is going to do that this year. There's the new Barbenheimer this year, which is Wicked and Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
And I don't care about Gladiator 2. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it can't be a true continuation because Russell Crowe's character died.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be his son, and like the mom is still there, and like some characters carry over, but like that was such a special story, and it was told so well that if you
right,
it's a weird one to choose to do. Now, granted, Ridley Scott is a good filmmaker. He's a great filmmaker, so he maybe he's okay. I don't know, but we'll see how that goes. I don't know I know I'm not going to see that one in the theater. If my daughter's visiting when Wicked's still in the theater, we might see that because we saw it together on Broadway. But I think it's just weird. It's just a weird time for movies. So
yeah, there's nothing I'm like dying to see this summer that's coming into theaters.
Yeah.
At least within the next couple of months. And even like you said, Gladiator, it's like how good can it be? That's not like a movie that I would really like to see a sequel for.
The funny thing is, like, I haven't seen any video that makes me want to see it. I saw one still picture of Denzel Washington, and I was like, oh, all right. I was like, he looks badass. Like, he looks all like Training Day out, but in like Gladiator style. Like, he looks dope. And I'm like, Denzel's still cool. Like, Denzel still makes me want to see something. So I may catch it as soon, like the day it streams, but I don't
Mhm.
see myself going to the theater for it.
And they're starting to build up the excitement for Wicked too.
Hmm.
Between like other award shows, they've had Cynthia Erivo as well as Ariana Grande show up,
Hmm.
just trying to create this hype. So I think since it's been out for over 20 years now,
Has it really?
Wicked, yeah, recently
Jesus,
celebrated, I think like 20 years or something like that.
That sounds right.
that's
And
crazy.
yeah, so I think that's why they're releasing it now. It's a milestone. And it's still, when I have friends and family visit New York City, that's always like a show that everyone still to this day wants to see as if it just came out.
Yeah, and
And it's
it's
good, don't get me wrong, it's very good, but
yeah,
I think at this point, like after I've seen it, I'm like, that's fine, on to the next. But for
yeah.
those who are not from the city, everyone, I think, has a special place in their heart for a Wizard of Oz, and knowing that like Wicked blew up in the early 2000s, it still has that appeal to people.
Yeah, it was really fun for me because when I went to see it, I didn't know the story. And
Hmm.
what that story does for the Wizard of Oz is actually really cool. Like the way
Totally.
that it maybe it's not totally like canon to the Wizard of Oz story, right? There's some stuff in there that maybe doesn't 100% line up with the movie, the original movie, but it's close enough. And you're like, it changes like your whole perspective of the Wizard of Oz once you watch
Hmm.
Wicked because of the way that things go down in that. And I think it was I think it was a really good a really good show, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And like I said, it if you really enjoy the Wizard of Oz, I do feel like you kind of have to see Wicked, because it 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 adds big time to the whole like mythos of that story.
Totally. And it's the right type of Broadway show to bring to theaters because it has so much magic
Mhm.
involved with the whole, I guess they start in school, but also just how they can really bring things to life on screen when it
Yeah,
comes to the Emerald City, for example. Like you can go and get super creative with that,
yeah,
which you can't. I mean, you can on stage, but you can take that even further in film.
yeah.
Going
So,
back to Beverly Hills Cop really quick.
Yes.
I saw that movie as a kid, as
mhm.
most of us did, we're Gen X. And it was probably the first R-rated movie I saw, and an R-rated movie that was due to massive F-bombs. Eddie Murphy in the early 80s was the shit. He had just come off
Mhm.
of Saturday Night Live. His first hit was Trading Places in 83, and
Okay.
then Beverly Hills Cop in 84. And I liken it to I'm going to nerd out here for a second, but I liken it to Bobby Brown in the 80s as well. Now, people always think of Bobby Brown as kind of washed up now or whatever, but people forget that in 1989, the top selling album, period, no matter what genre, the number one album of 1989 was Don't Be Cruel by Bobby Brown. He literally ruled the airwaves.
Hmm.
And the thing is, it was a big deal for, I'm getting sociological here, for Black males in the 80s to actually have testosterone and swagger was threatening. So to actually be like that out there was revolutionary. Eddie Murphy was someone who was not like a comic relief. Like it was a comedy, but he wasn't like a clown. Like he was actually the guy who like knew what was going on. Whereas the other two guys are kind of just like his kind of like comic
Yeah,
relief guy. Like,
they're the dummies. Yeah.
he was like, so the fact that he was out there like being that dude was like a big deal and definitely revolutionary at the time. Now fast forward to 2024, that's not revolutionary anymore. Like we're used to that, but back then it was a big deal. So to call back to like the role that like made him like the shit, I think is really special. That's which is why I wish I'd seen the movie before the podcast. um I hear that his signature laugh, which is that
Mhm.
also, Mike doesn't do it. So people have
Yeah.
called that out as like that's one thing that's missing, because that was definitely part of what made that movie
Sure.
iconic. And then the other thing that I noticed as well is that it's only a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes for the critics, but the audience score is 80. But from what I'm seeing in my feed, as well as what you said, like I I'm getting the impression that it was better than what like at least the critics think, and might even be. And I think you said it was good enough to where if they made another movie, you'd see it again. So I am looking forward to seeing this. I'm cool with the daughter being whack or whatever. And then at a budget of 150 million, that was actually pretty surprising, to me to see a budget that high for a comedy that didn't come out in the theaters. So I hope that, this did what it did. I think the cast is pretty heavyweight. Again, you had mentioned Kevin Bacon, you mentioned JGL, you mentioned Bronson Pinchot. Like, I'm looking forward to it. But I just remember, again, as a kid in the 80s, and when you go back and watch a lot of the 80s movies, it wasn't very, let's be real, diverse. So when you see like a Black actor like as a headliner and actually like kind of running shit, I remember that. It definitely made an impression on me. So and also one last thing I'll say as well is even that like almost like fish out of water thing where it's like he's from Detroit, but then he's walking into this like fancy Hollywood Beverly Hills. He sees people walking by in like Thriller jackets and he's just like laughing at it. Like, it's just like, I just wonder if that whole culture clash will happen. They duplicated it with Die Hard because again, that was a New York cop in LA, and it took a New York gritty cop to like figure out this LA shit, over here. And I think with Beverly Hills Cop, same thing. It's like this Detroit cop comes to Beverly Hills and uncovers like, the seedy shit going on. Sometimes you got to roll up your sleeves and bring that East Coast. And I know Detroit's Midwest, but I think it's Eastern time zone. It's fucking East Coast. Anyway, that's what's being brought to the table. So
the story of Die Hard predates Beverly Hills Cop.
Well, actually, I also heard that Cobra is the movie that was originally going to be Beverly Hills Cop, and then they basically turned it into that Cobra movie, which was Sylvester Stallone. But keep going with that because it's so funny how movies can kind of be in development hell and then morph into different things. Go back to Die Hard.
Well, I'll have to look it up and make sure that that I'm looking up the right person. But I think the person that was originally offered the part in Die Hard was Frank Sinatra. Like, it was supposed to be a completely different movie. And because it's a continuation of a character, and I hope I'm talking about the right movie and I'm not wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that it was that it was Die Hard, and it was a character from much further back, and that's why like when they were finally trying to get people, nobody was interested. And that's how Bruce Willis ended up getting it, because Bruce Willis was not the number one pick. Like they offered to everybody before Bruce Willis, and he got it because of Moonlighting. Yeah,
but he wasn't an action star. That's
no, not at all.
Think of him as like an action dude. So I remember like seeing the commercials at a fifth grade or whatever, and like this Moonlighting dude is an action star. But then when I actually saw the movie, I was like, yo, and he did. Like the big three was Arnold, Sly, and Bruce. Like they were the big three of the action. You had Van Damme in there too, but like no, as far as just American beefcake actor, like it was those three. And anyways, we went to like Beverly Hills Cop, then Wicked, then Beverly Hills Cop, now Die Hard. But it's all good. That's what we do, baby. That's what we do.
So, all right. Well, we should move on. So, do you want to talk about The Boys?
Do I want to talk about The Boys? I mean,
we talked about it a little bit last week, so it doesn't have to be a long one. But
I'll just. I mean, all I'll say really quick is I'm really happy with The Boys. I think it's really going somewhere. So you finally saw 5? So
yep, I'm all caught up.
Really quick, the flying souped up livestock, that
was hilarious.
It was hilarious. Like, Lauren, like just imagine these cows and sheep like flying. They're just flying. They can eat you. Like they're like rabid,
super powered and murderous. Like
murderous. Like cattle, like The Boys is just ridiculous. It's like it's a great satire on like I know you have no interest, but it's a great satire on just like politics. Like there's definitely the left and the right and all that stuff. But it's just anyway. I just gotta say, flying cattle, crazy. But then I think this latest episode goes into like S&M. Like, I'm
This
sorry.
is the most panned episode I've ever seen.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, people are super like pissed about this episode, but I
Fuck.
think it's the same. I think it's at least some of the same people that were pissed about this season in general because they
Yeah.
didn't get it.
Yes.
But what I'm noticing is there's a lot of men. I see
Yeah.
far fewer women complaining about this episode because they're
Being
like,
woke.
oh, it was a whole episode about him being sexually assaulted. And I'm like, where the fuck were you in season one when Starlight got, she went through everything she went through? Like, that wasn't infuriating. Nobody was mad about that. But when it happened in this one, it was super wrong.
That's
And
fragile,
and
man.
not that you can't I don't want to belittle what the character
No.
went through, right? Because I mean it was sexual
Fucked.
assault to a degree, but like at the same time, like he kept his clothes on the whole time. It was just weird shit happening around him. She was tickling him. Like it was weird.
Yeah.
And certainly like he had to,
Endorse some shit.
right. Like he had
Like she
to
smeared
kind
her
of
stuff
give
on
in.
his. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that was gross. I was like, oh man. But like, I feel like what happened to Starlight in the first season was far worse than this,
I'm not even gonna get into the
like, and so it's
oppression
just,
Olympics.
it was just really fascinating to me that now this
Yeah.
is outrageous when it wasn't
lame.
outrageous before. So I was like, okay, like,
I think the most kind of like I thought that what they were going to talk about was when you had that kind of high-powered senator talking about, oh,
oh no,
like
that was
natural
amazing.
things in the body that will abort a rape pregnancy, and then you see her
Which
like
is a
just have
real
that
stance
fantasy.
out there right now,
Yeah,
by the way.
she's like, she's like, I cannot believe I have to talk to these fuckers,
Mhm.
who won't be in a room with a woman that's not his wife or his mistress. Like, it's just like it calls out the bullshit that actually is out there, And then, so for me, it's like between that and then I gotta say the two twists. Okay, whoever didn't like this episode or critically planned it, fuck them. I'm gonna spoil this shit. The twist that, oh my God, what's his
Jeffrey Dean
name?
Morgan.
But yeah, but yes, but I gotta say it. Butcher. Okay, the twist.
Yeah.
It was straight up Fight Club level twist, dude. I didn't see that coming at all.
Oh, I
So Bill, oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Billy Butcher, okay, not only is seeing his wife talking to him as a vision, but it turns out that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character is a vision too. That was awesome because and then you realize he's going through all this shit, like it's all in his own head, and he's actually more twisted than he realizes. And that to me was awesome. And then Firecracker, dude, I thought she was toast. So then Firecracker is like, hey, I'll do anything for you. Like, first of all, props to you for doing your intel, because like Homelander is a dangerous person. Thank you, Lauren, for just letting us talk for a second. This is for all the boys people. The fact that she's like that, and he's like, I'm not into you like that or whatever. She's like, that's not it, And then like,
Yep.
I'm not gonna ruin it, but the thing happens, and he's like,
Yeah, the look on his dude,
whoa.
he is so good this season. Just as an actor, he is so good this season because that look on his face was perfect.
Priceless. Like,
Yeah.
and she had him by the like
Mhm.
she like, that is the one thing. And the fact, and now so she's the new like whatever, but you know what happened to Homegirl, like the original Elizabeth Shue, right? So
Yeah,
she's not, and she's
walk
not
that line.
completely safe. Yeah. But Homelander, she's playing with fire, but she had to do what she had to do, and I respect the shit out of that. She controlled the fucking controllables, got the hormones or whatever she needed to do to like bring him that. Now she's good. She's good. Anyways, last but not least, I love the safe word. The safe word was Zendaya.
That was hilarious.
Sorry. That was brilliant because he's like, what do you love the most? Like, like,
yeah, he's like, I love how he tried to slip it in without
Tarantula.
acting like he was slipping it in.
Yeah.
He just
like,
yell something out, and he was like, I just like to yell sometimes.
Yes. No, I thought that episode 5 was the most like over the top, but I actually think this episode was the most over the top I've ever seen, because to see like Nicole Menifee like being that dominatrix and doing what she did, like they really pushed the envelope. And I'm not one to yuck someone's yum per se, but I gotta say that if you were someone who's into that lifestyle or whatever, like this episode did you no favors. Like you are now
Yeah.
seen as deviant and evil and all the other shit, you know. But at least the gimpy guy was like actually helping them. I wasn't sure what his thing was. Oh, and I love that the fact that the butler, like the, you know, the happen to be black, but like the
Yep.
butler like goes to the, we'll make it look like an accident. Like that was great. Like after all those years was able to finally get revenge. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, F the haters, man. I think
Yeah,
the voice
it's definitely like if you look at the people, it's definitely the most fragile people that are complaining.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh my God, they had to torture a billionaire by giving his money to Black Lives Matter. And I was like, yeah, because he's a dick. He's a racist dick. So yeah, doing that to him is in fact torture. Like that would be the worst thing that could happen to him.
yacht rock. That's the other thing. The brilliant use of yacht rock as like if you listen to yacht rock, that means you're like, yo, I haven't heard some of those songs since like dentist days, right? Or whatever.
Yep,
Like
yep.
and they're playing that stuff and it just so fits. Like those songs are ruined to me now. And Tech Night is anyway, yeah. All right. I've done enough random gushing. This was not about necessarily, this is just a giddy session about the show.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched The Boys yet, please just watch it if you can handle all the
It's definitely
violence, all the other stuff.
It's not a
It
show
might be
for
too
everyone,
much.
but
It's, you know, I know, Lauren, you have this reputation for being all like nice and innocent, and you're not that innocent. No, but at the same
I'm
time,
not that innocent.
go. But at the same time, I do think you have your limits. So I feel like this one might be like, yeah, I'm good, Andrew. That was a bit much.
I mean,
Yeah.
I watched Saw 10 tonight with my brother, so why not?
different though.
But it's not the violence thing. It's
it
worse.
is, yeah, it's not the violence. It's
Everything else.
yeah. It's they're bad people. Like just in
Oh,
general,
more
they're just
from like a morality compass, you're
Put
saying.
it this way. I know that we had you had a hard time with challengers. You're like, how can someone be so evil?
Oh,
Okay.
fair, yeah.
So this is way beyond the
Yeah.
challengers shit. Like this is like some twisted, like Homelander is a fucker.
Homelander's the worst.
And that's the well, and is he the protagonist?
No,
or the main
he's
character, whatever you want to call him?
he is the big bad, but there like legitimately there are people out there that
who
like
thought he was the main
yeah
good guy.
didn't understand that he was
Gotcha.
the bad guy, and I'm like, you're an idiot. Like,
Yeah, I've
he's
heard good
definitely
things
bad.
about it from a lot of people. And Kevin, you and I spoke about this on a former episode, just how much you liked it, but also just what would happen if people or power got into the wrong hands,
Yeah.
or people that don't have really a
Yeah.
moral compass and want to help the world, and they're
Yeah.
just like, I'm gonna
That's
do
it.
this for me. Yeah,
Yeah, this is power as a business rather than power as a
right.
way to help people.
Yeah, but it's telling to, what would happen if that were the case in the real world.
Yeah.
I think so personally, because it's not all, rainbows and roses, as we know.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's lighten it up a little bit then, and talk about do you watch the Roger Federer documentary on it's on Prime, right?
It's on Prime. Yes, I really enjoyed it. So for all of you sports fans, and particularly those who enjoy tennis, Federer, 12 Final Days, it documents his retirement announcement in late 2022, and it walks you through him relaying this really sad news to the world, and it shows you how he prepares for his final match for the Laver Cup, which is played in London, and he plays with one of his biggest rivals / dear friends, Rafael Nadal, and it goes through just how highly respected Roger Federer he's one of the best male players of
Ever.
probably all
Yeah.
time. And he's just known for being such a classy person on and off the court. He's incredibly charismatic. They go over not only his announcement, just his relationship with his wife, who is 3 or 4 years older than him, who also was a pretty big tennis player too. But she definitely took her career and was able to reel it in and was in charge of not only like starting their family, but also she was the head of, I think, his organization too for some
Yep.
time. And
That sounds a lot like Challengers, dude.
Yeah, it does actually.
All
It
right.
does
I just had to say that.
to some degree, yeah. But Roger has a lot of talent, and he was a much better player than Mirka, his wife, ever was. No disrespect to Mirka. Mirka was great, but nothing like she wasn't winning any majors as far as I'm concerned, right, Kevin? I don't think Mirka won
I
any
don't even
majors.
think I've heard of her, to be honest.
I didn't until the documentary. I just knew she played tennis, but it doesn't compare to
Yeah.
challengers in terms of just level of skill. Roger was the GOAT for many years, and it talks about his journey and how after some injuries and surgeries, he decided to not quite, well, yeah, throw in the, I shouldn't say throw in the towel, but yeah, essentially throw in the towel
Go out on
and
top at least,
retire.
yeah.
Yeah, go out on top, one last match. It shows his relationship with and rivalry with Rafael Nadal. The two of them came to rise like in the early 2000s, and how they were both able to make a name for themselves and how they faced each other in various majors.
hmm
And then they brought in Novak Djokovic, who's been viewed as sort of a villain in tennis for many years. And the way that Roger speaks about Novak is, really portraying him as like a misunderstood player. He even said he didn't think he was going to be that good. Novak Djokovic is like, I think, the perfect example of someone who hones in on his craft and knows that, all right, I'm not that great. What can I do to take to the next level? This guy went like full vegan. He changed his diet. He changed his exercise routine, and he's now probably the number one male player in the world. And despite all of the negative press about him and just, I think, his behavior on the court, off the court, I know he was very, with the whole vaccine stuff, he would show up to matches like in 2021 without being vaccinated. He definitely was sort of that mischievous player that I think a lot of people question, but Roger, speaks very highly of him and gives him props where props are due for being such a resilient player and someone who's really taken a deep focus in bettering his career. And as you can see, I mean, he's crushing it now, Novak Djokovic. And then they show a little bit of an interview, Andy Murray, and all four guys are crying at like after his last match, which was really poignant. And I think for Roger, just knowing that his whole life, 40 years, because he retired at 41 or 40 years old, was dedicated to him as a tennis player, and just kind of, even though that's always going to be part of his identity, but knowing that this is the end of what he was greatest at and what he made so many sacrifices for him and his family. So very great documentary. Wasn't too long. It's on Prime. Highly recommend it if you like tennis, if you like Roger Federer. It just shows how classy kind of a person he is and how passionate he is about the sport of tennis. He is truly just a great it seems like from the interviews and after watching him play for the past 2 3 decades
Yeah.
or so that he's been playing. I think he first came about like in the late 90s and definitely was able to rise in the early 2000s, but just a great human. And this documentary shows how much the whole tennis community in the world admired him and watched his last match, and how all of the world was in many cases like so deeply sad when he played his last match and hearing the news that he was going to retire, because he was tennis, men's tennis for so many years. So I think he's someone that a lot of people are going to look up to in the tennis world and compare and contrast down the line when it comes to just his career and stuff. And they even show like Bjorn Borg how he was a big inspiration for his career. Roger Federer, which was great too, because they're both from Sweden, or is it Sweden or Switzerland? He's Swiss. Okay. yeah, so he's from Switzerland, but they're both Swiss players. And it's great to see those four guys, Andy Murray, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Roger Federer, just how much like love and respect they have for one another, despite them being, rivals on the court and all being so competitive. It's all love there, and you really feel that in the documentary and how all three of them are tearing up, as well as Roger sobbing in a lot of these interviews because it means so much to him. This was his life, this was his everything. And I mean, he's truly left a mark in the world of tennis, and I think it's nice to see and learn more about Roger Federer behind the scenes, and it does a great job at exploring that.
Yeah, he's interesting because I think he was what tennis needed when he came out, because in the late 90s, early 2000s, you had Andy Roddick was like the big, like everybody wanted him to be the big star, and he was
Right.
good. Like he was really good. But he was kind of like that young bad boy of tennis, like because he was, young and fiery. He wasn't a bad guy, but he was
Right.
like, he pushed the boundaries and stuff, and he had some great tournaments. I remember, I forget which event it was, if it was the U.S. Open, but there's one where you have to win by two strokes, or not two strokes, but 2 points. And he's played James Blake, and they played for like 8 hours. Like it was ridiculous. They played for so long because neither one could, get that one step
Right.
further than the other one. And so that was great. But like when Federer came in, there was like you said, this class that he brought to a sport that, wasn't as popular as other sports, not even as popular as golf. And golf is fun to play, but unless you're really into golf, it's boring as shit to watch.
Right.
Like it's not super exciting. And so tennis needed that. So between him on the male side and then the Williams sisters on the female side, I think that's what tennis needed at the time. But he really was like, even when he was just crushing people left and right, like he was still just so mellow. Like you never saw like, the angry Roger Federer or the crazy Roger Federer. He
No,
was just always super level. So I think his career is important for the sport.
totally. And he's just, oh, I always remember just watching him on the screen, and he's just such a joy to watch.
Mhm.
He makes it look so easy,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
especially
not.
just all those matches against Nadal. The two of them are amazing players.
Mhm.
In general, having his last match as a doubles match with Rafael Nadal, I thought that was a perfect way to end his career.
Yeah, that's cool.
Before we move on, if you do move on, I have two questions, maybe three. The first one would be, does anyone know how much, like what my level of interest is in professional sports of any kind?
I am of the understanding it's relatively low.
What
Wait,
about
from like 0 to 100? Are we doing like 1 to 10? What's the
whatever you choose?
scale?
Yeah, like let's do 0 to 10.
0 to 10. I'm gonna put it at like a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, I was going to say 3. We don't talk a lot of sports ball.
I'd say 0. That said, I have heard of Pete Sampras. I have heard of Andre Agassi. So where do these names fit into this constellation of stuff that you guys are talking
You're
about?
90s.
talking,
Those are
you're
90s
talking 80s,
guys.
90s. Yeah.
They're old school. And then
Yeah,
John McEnroe's before that.
Yeah, McEnroe was
Yes.
before them. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Never heard
McEnroe
of-
and Agassi, I
Oh.
think, overlapped. But
Yeah.
at the end of McEnroe's career,
That's where Sampras comes in.
yeah.
And then Agassi. And so Agassi. So McEnroe, Agassi, Sampras, and then
And then you had Roddick and
Roddick.
Blake.
And yeah, sort of like end of the 90s, early 2000s. I think he won his first major in like 2000. Roger Federer won his first major in like 2003, 2004. So really in like the beginning of the 2000s, that's where you get Rafael Nadal from Spain, and then Roger Federer from Switzerland. The two of them are on the rise. And then along the way, you've got Novak Djokovic, and you're like, who the heck is this like pompous
I've heard of
jerk?
Djokovic, actually.
Yeah, because he's got a lot of bad press. He would show up to, I think, was it the Australian Open? He wasn't allowed to go because he wasn't vaccinated. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm here, too bad. And he was just very
Newsworthy.
newsworthy, I think is
I
a
like
nice
that.
way of saying. Yeah, he's just kind of a jerk. But it's funny because you would think like other players would just straight up hate him. And Roger was just saying, like, this guy, he wasn't really that great. He was not at our level. And this guy was like, screw this. I'm gonna get myself to your level. And he just changed everything.
He's the Aaron Yeager of tennis. Okay.
Yeah, and
He
that's the
just
thing.
crushed.
Like I told my son is that sometimes you have people in sports that are
Mhm.
so physically gifted, they don't try to get any better. They just
Right.
they're always good. And so when they get to the point where they're up against other people that are good, they don't they all of a sudden can't compete, even though they're naturally more gifted because they didn't ever put in that extra effort. Um, whereas some people that are not as physically gifted, but they want, like, the want is there.
No.
They can do
That's
amazing
Novak.
things. I always laugh because one of my favorite baseball players to watch growing up, because baseball was my sport, was David Eckstein. He played second base for the Los Angeles Angels. He went somewhere else afterwards, the Cardinals, I think. But anyways, he if you looked at him on the field, he looked like he was like 5'8". Every single play he ever made looked like it was not going to happen. Like everything was maximum effort, just barely made it. Everything, like, you look at this guy and you're like, that dude should not be playing at the major league level. Like, he just didn't look quite good enough, but everything he did actually was good enough. So he's one of those guys, you look at him and you're like, this guy busted his ass to get here. He busted his ass every single second of every single game. And that's why he's there. Because there were other people that, bigger, stronger, faster, everything that weren't where he was because he put in the effort to get there.
Yep.
And so, like, it then doesn't necessarily even apply to sports. Like, if you're great at something, you have to assume that somebody is better. And if you want to be
Mhm.
the best, you got to keep working to be the best, even if you're the best out there right now. That next
Yes.
person is coming up behind you somewhere. So if you're that person, if you're that competitive person, you can't ever
Sleep. There's
let
no
up.
off season.
Yeah.
Right. But he's
Always
just
grow.
he's the complete opposite of like Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. This guy is cocky, he's loud, he could be a bit of a jerk. Like you see him screaming on and off the
He
field.
sounds like
Not big.
McEnroe.
Yeah, he's just not, he's very and he's controversial on top of that between the whole like refused to get a COVID vaccine, ended up getting deported from Australia, excuse me. That was like in 2021, 2022. Whereas like Roger and Raphael, they were rule
Gentlemen.
followers.
Mhm.
They're gentlemen, they're rule followers. You didn't see them say outrageous things during interviews or act mischievously on the court. So very different, but just the way that Rogers spoke about him, you could just tell there was like a level of respect. And he straight up said, like, I didn't think he was going to be as big as he was. And this guy was so hungry. He was like, I'm going to get to their level. And he did. And he surpassed them. And now he's like number one. And Andy Murray, he's only won what, like one or two majors,
Yeah.
but he's again always like within the top 5, 10. He's well respected. He's part of the UK and another classy guy, not as talented as the other three performance wise, but all four of them represented Team Europe in this Laver Cup tournament that they had. And that was the last tournament that Roger played. So, Andrew, I know you're not interested in sports. I know you're not super interested in tennis, but one of these days, go to the US Open.
I have.
Watch. You have. You have. Okay, so
Yes.
you probably seen one of these four guys at some point,
Maybe.
perhaps. But or even just if you go on YouTube, watch a YouTube video of Roger playing and see how he just is able to hit the ball and how like beautiful his strokes are. Just amazing. Like he's just got such a way of playing, which I think they would just say in general is just such a joy to watch. And
Yeah.
from at least from what I recall years ago and most recently, just watching within the past couple of years him play in matches, whether it be like a no-namer or against someone like Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic. And he always is smiling too. You know, he was never a sore loser, just incredibly humble. His wife was just so proud of him. And even his kids, they show how emotional his kids are because they grew up on the road.
Mhm.
That's all they knew. He's got 4 young kids. And I think at the end of the day, the fact that he was able to play until 40, most sports you're done at like 30, 35. 40 is a very long career
Mhm.
playing a sport
Yeah.
professionally. So,
Yeah, it's hard to stay healthy. It's hard to stay good. There's a lot of things that
yeah,
get in the way.
he was trying to avoid it or to prolong it as long as possible, but I think his knees and mostly his knees just gave out
Yeah.
at a certain point. But yeah, I mean, he's 41, 42 now. He's a legacy without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. We'll move on, and I will talk about a couple of legends also, Godzilla and Kong. They their most recent movie came out. It is available on HBO Max now. And we watched Godzilla minus one not long ago and talked about that and how that is very much an art film. Like Godzilla minus one has a point. It's got a message. It was very simple but amazing. Like everything about that movie was subdued. Even like Godzilla destroying things was like very like compact. Everything that happened for a reason in a tight space. Um, Godzilla Kong is an absolute just visual, like just fun, right? Like it is clearly as you watch it, it is mostly, if not all, CGI. Which means in like 15 years you might watch it and be like, this movie kind of blows. But for now, it looks great, right? Most of the story takes place in that hollow world, the kind of underworld that we saw introduced in Godzilla versus Kong. Um, and this one's all about there's this group of human beings down there that are also living under there. There's a whole tribe of Kong-like gorillas that were kind of banished to this section of the underworld there because they were very they were bad. Like the mean monkey was in charge, right? And he was a real dick. So they sent him off. Well, now he's starting to work his way out. And so this civilization of humans realizes that he's coming. They send out the call for Godzilla because they want Godzilla to come save them. And I mean, as far as the story goes, I mean, that's it. Like people in trouble need Godzilla. Kong is also down there and he wants, to free the slave apes that are being enslaved by a super evil ape. They have their own like sort of Godzilla character. There's a few other Titans that get fought for like 2 minutes in this movie. There's a Titan appearance near the end of the movie that I don't want to spoil for anybody that's into this stuff that makes a big deal that kind of brings things around. But it's a fun like just action movie, right? Like Kong. Sometimes I watch these movies and I'm like, look, everybody loves Godzilla, but apparently everybody hates Kong because that dude keeps getting his ass kicked in these movies. Like he gets messed up and then gets up because like in because of Kong versus Godzilla, they literally had to like restart his heart with the EKG, like and so he gets his ass handed to him. If you see the trailer, you see he's got like that glove, like he's got the
Yes.
Nintendo Power Glove, on, and and like the way that comes about is fun. They had the guy from Downton Abbey, Matthew. I can't remember his last name, but like he's been around for a while, and he's usually like pretty mellow, or he's got a little bit of a sense of humor. But he was fantastic, and he was a lot of fun. The little girl from the Kong movies is in this. She's a main character. She's a little older now, but she still looks relatively young. Rebecca Hall from Godzilla versus Kong is in this. The black guy from Godzilla versus Kong that was like the
Brian
conspiracy
Tyree.
theorist. Yeah,
Yeah.
was that Brian Tyree? I knew I
Yeah,
recognized
it's
him. I
him.
couldn't remember his name. But he's in it. He's great. Like he's a lot of fun. Like it's just really
Oh, Kyle Chandler's in this?
No.
Yeah. He's basically he's or maybe not. Well, I'm looking at this cast thing. Maybe they're anyways, he's the guy from anyways, you've seen him. He's kind of a
Which
Joel
one?
Edgerton type guy.
Kyle Chandler.
What?
I know who Kyle Chandler is, but I don't remember him
Okay.
being in this.
Huh. Well, I'm just looking at the
He might
cast
have
on
had a
Google.
small appearance like in a flashback or
Okay,
something, because
maybe.
it's a really tight cast. Like it
Right.
really is. He may have shown up in one scene early on, but once you get into the Hollow World, once the people get into the Hollow World, you're talking about five maybe main characters, 4 or 5 main characters,
Okay.
and then you have the civilization under there that doesn't have any actors I recognize. Um, and then this one is definitely, whereas Godzilla minus one is a story about the people. It's about the human beings being affected by Godzilla. This is all about just
Good.
monster titans fighting each other underground. And there's some people that are the reason they're fighting. It's the exact opposite, you know. And it's a great spectacle movie. Like I said, I'm sure because this is CGI, it won't age well. Like eventually this won't look good. But for now, it looks great. Like it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch.
How would you rank them? Because like my
Oh
personal ranking
shit.
is like my personal ranking, and I want to see this one, right? My personal ranking is my favorite for me is King of the Monsters. Then probably I gotta see the first one again, I guess. But it might be the first one. I actually didn't really like Godzilla versus Kong, although I think I'm being hard on it because I saw it during the pandemic too. So maybe I was just in a bad mood. And then I know why I hated it so much, the fucking humans. I feel like Millie Bobby Brown
Yes.
was in the Godzilla versus Kong one, and I was just like, every time the humans were in there, I'm like, oh my God, please
Yeah.
go away. So this fourth one might. So anyway, but I just
Well, you got to
love.
count Skull Island in there too, right?
Oh fuck. Okay. Recalibrate. All right. King of the Monsters, then Skull Island, then the first one, as in Godzilla. I'll call the top 3. So anyway, that's mine, but yours could be different. I just want to understand.
Mine's definitely like mine's the first Godzilla because that one the people didn't suck in.
Yes.
Like that was like, and then I think second is actually Skull Island for almost the same reason.
Yes.
Like the people were like they served a purpose. They weren't stupid. Like it was there. Then King of the Monsters, which was great, but the people idiots.
They were annoying, but they weren't. But yeah, they were annoying, but they were at least tolerable annoying. Because again, Kyle Chandler was bad. Vera Farmiga is always playing the morally ambiguous motherfuckers. She's done it in other movies.
Yeah, I love her though. Like I've always been a huge fan of hers.
And then Millie Bobby Brown was whack. But then you had what's his name? You had oh my God, so Tywin Lannister was in King of the Monsters. He was good.
Yeah, he plays good. Yeah.
It's like I'm asking these questions and I'm talking over your ass. I'm sorry, but like,
all right. I mean,
so,
that's it. Like, I would put this. This is definitely above Versus.
Good,
like, for sure.
All right.
Because the human story is fine. The humans aren't annoying. They're fun. But like the especially Versus, and even King of the Monsters to a degree, still focused on the people a lot.
Yeah.
When all anybody wanted to watch was these big ass things just ruin shit and fight each other and come to whatever end they can. Yeah.
Rodan, like, flying over shit and it's Blaze, and then how Rodan was fucking up like the fighter pilots and shit. Blaze is like by spinning around, like, yo.
Yeah.
And then he and when Godzilla finally like gets like amped up and then comes up and just like I think he just fucks up Ghidorah. Anyway, yo. And then the first emergence of Ghidorah, like in the polar ice caps, like where he's just like in the snow, and then Godzilla shows up, and then like Ghidorah like fucks him up. Yo, all right, let me calm down. Anyways, I loved that movie, and I hope that this one, you said it's monster action, so I'm ready.
Oh, big time.
Ready, and I'm jealous. Okay,
yeah.
I'm a second jealous. I see you saw Axel F before me, and I'm jealous I saw King Kong, but it's okay. I'm gonna see him.
Set aside 4 hours, you can get caught up real quick. You got Netflix and HBO. There is a hilarious. So if you saw, I'm pretty sure in the trailers you see like this mini Kong, like little Little Kong,
Yes.
like it looks a little baby monkey. There is a scene when they first get introduced that's so fucking funny because when Kong is coming through, he comes into this territory that he didn't know existed. There's these other apes that do not appreciate him showing up. So there's like 3 of them and they come after him, like they go to fight. And of course he's Kong, so he beats the living piss out of him. Like he's just, and like he meets the little one and he's like, "Oh, you're cute, little buddy, whatever." And the little fucker like jumps on him and bites him and like keeps attacking him. So at one point he grabs this little monkey and he beats the shit out of the other monkeys with the little monkey. It's fucking hilarious. Like me and my kids were dying. Like, we were laughing so hard because the whole time I was like, that little monkey's a dick. Like I hate that little monkey. I hope he gets his ass. And then he uses them as a weapon against the other ones. Hilarious.
I love
So
that. I'm
yeah,
ready.
it really is fun. And that's this one, I think more so than Versus, realized that it's just supposed to be fun. Like, yes, the plot is there, and the people are there. There is like an undercurrent of like that human driving story because, the little girl, this is like an
She is.
offshoot of her people, right? Because she's from Skull
Right.
Island, and all that, and getting there, and like all those actors are great. Like the guy from Downton Abbey is fantastic. Like he's hilarious. He's so fun that he works great. Brian Tyree, hilarious because he's like a big dork. He's great. Rebecca Hall is a great actress. Like she's fine. Like she's there to drive the little girl's story. Like she adopted her.
It looks like the kid from the second Deadpool's in here too, I think. Julian Dennison, maybe. I'm not sure. I could be. Yeah, yeah. He was in Deadpool. Yeah, he was kind of like the chunky kid who had like a Australian accent.
I did
Anyways,
not see him.
it says he's in here in this cast. Huh.
Yeah.
Anyways, you'll fix it in post. He's
Yeah.
from New
Well,
Zealand,
there's definitely like some early setup where there's still,
So
on
these
the
are all people
surface.
from the last movie, probably. Or
Yeah, it could be that, and it could be that, either it was a flashback or we saw them for a second or something like that, while
no,
they
I
were
believe
on the
you. It's
surface.
wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah.
I just think whatever I'm looking at is wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah, because Dan Stevens, it wasn't Matt, it was Dan Stevens. Dan Stevens
Yeah.
from
As Trapper, veteran,
yeah.
veterinarian, and Monarch. Yeah, I went to a more credible source. It's Wikipedia, actually, who was more credible. It's a small cast. You're right.
Yeah, it really is. It's really tight. And I think that's what makes it work. Like it doesn't go too broad with the story. You're not, versus you had people in what you had people in Japan, you had people in like in a whole other part of the world, and they had to travel across the world so these two could fight, and like it was a little silly. And this one worked. Like this one's fun. It really is fun. Um, do I have Rotten Tomatoes? Let me see.
Yeah, I pulled it up. 91% audience, 54% critics. So I'm good.
Yeah, I definitely think this was made for the audience. I don't know what critic is going to this and being like, "Oh, this is not deep enough." I don't think there's enough character development in Kong. Just
there's
cool your jets.
247 reviews from the critics. So there's a surprising number of critics actually went to see this. Do you guys? It was released on March 29. Can anyone guess why March 29 is special in my life?
It's your birthday?
That's why we're friends, Lauren. Yes, it was released on my birthday. Yet another reason why I'm excited about this movie.
Yeah, definitely. When you get, like I said, just it's almost okay to watch it while you've got some stuff going on because you're not going to miss like life-changing dialogue. So as long as you can see the action and hear the action, I think you'll be all right. So like you'll be okay watching it when you've got other stuff going on. Now, if you are doing that when you can like kind of stop what you're doing for a minute and really enjoy it, that would be ideal too. So like if you're doing dishes or something where you can just stop, then great.
I'm going to start it tonight after this podcast. I won't finish it because it's late.
Yeah.
But I'll start it.
Yeah, it's fun. I think you'll enjoy it. So definitely give that a watch, and yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. I think anybody that's enjoyed any of the previous MonsterVerse movies, you'll enjoy this one. So okay. So How about, let's see, this one I think will be quick, but you watched the latest episode of The Acolyte.
I did.
Now I know you were here, then you were here. Like, how do you feel about the latest episode? Because it
So it
was
was a
not
bridge.
action packed, this one,
No,
not
it
like
was
the
a
last one.
bridge. I actually felt it was underwhelming. But that's okay because I just felt like it's a bridge to something else. That's all it is. It was like I was just like, it's okay, it's cool. Like it was just not much happened except, of course, now uh uh shit. Saul? Yeah,
Yeah.
Saul. Saul knows that that's May and not
Hmm.
OSHA. And then as far as like OSHA and the stranger goes, it almost reminds me a bit of like there's a part of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon where like she wakes up in the lair of this like adventurer guy. Like she wakes up in his lair and then like he takes a bath and she's like supposed to be like all like like put off balance by his like nakedness. I'm being ridiculous
Yeah.
now. But anyway, point is like he's like, I'm not a bad guy. Like, you can go ahead and like use it, turn your saber, Like he's kind of like seducing her, but I don't think he's really trying to seduce her. He's just being as authentic as possible so that way she can then trust him. And he even
Yeah.
says, like, you shouldn't trust me, but I am asking you to trust me, And it's like, oh, and then he's also like, and you're more powerful than you think, like you're being
Yeah.
held back, man. Like that was you. That wasn't them in terms of like that was your power. So it was to me, it was just bridge episode. Green lady with the head, like obviously there's something going on. Like she's like, oh shit, we gotta go clean or mess up and use laser whips to kill umber moths. Yeah, it was like an okay episode.
Yeah, for me, I liked it. I think I probably liked it more than you did. And I think because yeah, it's a bridge episode, but it's still doing what this whole show is designed to do, which is make you look at the Jedi in a much more critical light,
And
right?
that's the
Like,
thing. I
and
don't mind
because
it, the Jedi.
you have the stranger who, yes, is using the dark side. He's doing all these things that are not, acceptable, right? But if the Jedi hadn't come after him, he wouldn't have killed anybody. He wasn't out there, at least as far as we've seen. He's not out there. He's not the red-eyed Sith. Like he's not 100% evil and all that. So, like he just wants to be left alone and be able to do things
Yeah,
without the rules that are imposed by this organization that we're starting to see as questionable with the things that they do, anyways.
right.
So, like maybe he's not that wrong. Like me, it's to me the whole point of this series is to just put a shadow over this organization that, like we said last week, growing up we watched this as these are the end all be all of good guys, right? And when you see them as a huge conglomeration of good guys, maybe they are at the point where they think their shit don't stink, right? Like that everything they do is right because it's what they're doing. And so like I said, the whole point of this series, at least to this point, seems to be to put a shadow over that and make you question just how good the good people are, and if there's a point, it would take a few more series of different kinds to kind of see if there ever was a time when they really were pure and it got impure and then fell off, right? Like where does that where does that start to happen? But it does feel like that's the point. And so I like that. And I really liked his interactions with OSHA,
Yes.
because they were like, yeah, he's not supposed to be the good guy necessarily, but he feels like he's being his authentic self. Like he is like, that is exactly who he is. Maybe he's not the best guy, but at least he is being honest or
Yes.
seemingly being honest. And it seems like Saul has been holding back and he
Yes.
was, we keep almost getting the story and then we don't get it. So I really want to see when they're going to give that nugget up because there's only a couple episodes left, I think.
I'll say this. If it turns out that, yes, Saul and the guys are the ones who burned the village, I'll be a little disappointed because it's like, well, then, duh, like that's what you guys have been kind of hinting at the whole time. If that's your big like reveal, then I don't think that's creative storytelling. Now, if you're someone who's like, fuck the system, like Federer sucks. Yes, I'm being a little whatever. Like, then you're gonna love that shit because they're like, yeah, see, I told you, power corrupts, absolutely, you know. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know, man. Sometimes it takes like, you know, I'm gonna go there because I'm weird. Like the reason why I think I have a bent towards like the feds or whatever is like during the civil rights movement, during desegregation, if you left it to the local yokels, you know, they would have been like, yep, this is not happening. So the federal government had to come in and let these girls walk into that school and enforce desegregation. Okay. Enforce it, you know? So you could argue, nope, that's a trampling of our states' rights. Like we should have slavery. We should have like blah, 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 whatever. But it took a wider governmental body to say, nope, we are actually going to lay down the law and say, this is wrong. We are going to make this place safe for everyone. That was their goal, you know? So I see the Jedi as kind of like that space force. That said, yes, just because you have power doesn't make you good. And I think I love the way you put that. It was like, you know, just because they're the Jedi, that doesn't mean they're good. And so anyway, all I'm saying is, yes, I am personally, and at least I have the self-awareness to admit where my biases are. I'm invested in the Jedi being good. So if they end up sucking, then at least be creative with your suckage, okay? Make it so that like maybe it was ambiguous and their hand was forced. And that's why they have to kind of cover their tracks. But if it's just straight up, we want these kids, we'll take them, you know, no matter what, then I'll be okay. And
See, for me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Like, I think that has to happen. Like, I think that has to be the story. Whether they deliver it in like whatever method they deliver it in, I think that has to be the story that's given. Like, you have to see that these guys are definitively fallible. You know, you can say that, but you know, it's true. Like, you can't
that
have
means there's no hope. There's no hope
until there's a new hope. Yeah, gotcha.
That was so perfect. No, that was so perfect. I'm letting it stand. Like, like that was perfect. I'm letting it stand. I'm not even saying it was a gotcha. That was just poetic.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I'm still excited to see what happens next. I think for me, I need to see whatever that reveal is from Saul, right? But I'm actually more invested, maybe in whatever badness there is in the green chick. You know,
Yes.
whatever her shady side is, and then what's going on with Osha and the stranger.
Yeah, the stranger. Yeah.
Like the soul thing. Like, I feel like if they reveal that, you know, these 4 Jedi burn this village on purpose or on accident, I don't care. Like, if that's the reveal, like that's like this corner of the story, but this whole rest of the story is actually what is important to me. So, because like I said, I feel like that kind of has to be that part of the story. Like, just story wise, I don't know what you're going to do different. So, I mean, they could do something brilliant different, and that'd be awesome. But I don't know.
I remember what I was going to say, and that is, I do actually still have faith in Leslie. I think that she's going to surprise us. I do.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like, I am glad that people generally came around. It's funny that it took an ass-kicking scene and then a mostly naked Jason from The Good Place to really pep people up, but you know, more power to him for doing it. But I think I mean, there's definitely the haters, and I like the fact that you know, she acknowledges it, and it was just like, yeah, of course there's haters out there. Like, what am I going to do about that? I'm not going to do anything about that. So I'm going to tell the story that I think needs to be told, and great. So
Exactly. Smart.
Yeah. So, all right. So I don't think I have anything else, but Lauren, you had the My Policeman movie, right?
Yes, I watched that about 2 weeks ago. It's with Harry Styles, and I saw him in Don't Worry, Darling last year, and I was like, all right, let me see this film since I liked him in Don't Worry, Darling, which came out last year. My Policeman is about a love triangle. It takes place in the 1950s in England, where a police officer, played by Harry Styles, his character's name is Tom, meets the character Patrick, who is a museum curator, after Patrick reports an incident, and the two end up growing a bond and falling in love with one another. Patrick was already confirmed and has had homosexual relationships in the past, whereas Tom's character is a young policeman who hasn't had that experience yet with men. I think I was hoping more of like a fellow travelers type of scenario in film form, which I really enjoyed that series, whereas this for me fell a little bit flat. It wasn't enough time to really develop their relationship. The two of them fall in love, being that Tom, Harry Styles' character, is a policeman. He has to be very careful given that he has a responsibility to, quote unquote, protect the community, and being that it's an illegal action to be gay in 1950s, he really has to do everything, not just in private as everyone did at that time, like in the US, which they showed in Fellow Travelers. There were these secret clubs and bars that were underground where homosexual relationships would, or at least the gay community would gather, shall I say, and they could be their true selves, unlike, others, unfortunately, in public, you could only have heterosexual relationships. So then is Marion, who comes in, who's a teacher, who Tom meets shortly after, and he likes her a lot, but he realizes that he needs to show that he has an attraction to women, and he ends up courting this teacher, Marion, who is played by Emma Corrin. And they show these characters in the 1950s, and then they flip to current time years later, where older Patrick has recently survived a stroke, and he was rehabilitating himself in the home of Marion and Tom, who have been married for many years at that point. You find out why Tom and Patrick haven't talked in a number of decades, because they had this beautiful relationship, and you end up finding out that Marion is the one who finds out after the secret relationship is revealed, since the three of them get very close. They all admire the arts. They go to the museum. After the three of them are at a gathering at their home in the countryside in England, she ends up catching the two of them embracing one another in a way that's not, just friends. And she ends up making an anonymous report to the police, which she had kept secret for many, many years, up until the end of the film. So unfortunately, at that point in time, since Tom is a cop, he keeps quiet. Patrick goes to jail for a couple of years, and then I think at that point, him and Marion decide, like, Patrick's in the past, let's not bring him up, let's just stay married. But she realizes once Patrick gets sick, older Patrick is actually played by Rupert Everett, and he's in the home, and Tom wants nothing to do with him because I think he views that relationship that was unfortunately severed as kind of like just bad mojo from the past, and he doesn't want to bring that in, even though that was his true love. And it's funny because they kind of like in the beginning scenes when they're forming this relationship, they serve as really good friends, the two guys. Harry Styles plays the policeman, played by the character's name is Tom Burgess, and then David Dawson plays Patrick, the museum curator, and he invites him to his home, and he's like, "Can I draw you?" And it just made me think of Titanic, like in that way. It's like a little sappy. He's like, "Can I draw you?" And then all of a sudden they become close and intimate and such. But overall, I just thought having this in movie form was too short. So you really didn't get to see the relationship as, or at least blossom as much as I would have liked it to. And uh, yeah, it's unfortunate that his wife, ends up reporting them and this action years later. But and not revealing it until that time. So not my favorite movie. I did want to see it because it's been recommended on Prime. Harry Styles is someone that I think is incredibly talented, not just musically, but also he's been in a lot of movies the past like 4 or 5 years, and I'm waiting to see him lead as like a main role, but just to absolutely crush it. So hopefully he gets another opportunity. This was just not even him. I just didn't really love the whole film, unfortunately. I think I also am a bit biased because Fellow Travelers was a really great depiction of a homosexual love story between two men in the 50s and then details that throughout the decades. Whereas this one, it's just like a quick romance that dies out and then they end up coming together years later once one gets sick.
Yeah, it's interesting
So,
because this is one of those movies looking at Rotten Tomatoes that has a massive skew. So the critics hated it.
yeah,
Like it's a 45% from the critics, but a
yeah,
96% from the audience.
Damn.
So like
yeah.
that's wild to me.
Honestly, I wouldn't say it's a 46, but I wouldn't even put it in like the 80s or 90s or maybe even 70s. I was just like, fine. It's
Yeah.
okay. There are better, I mean, there's a lot more content now coming out about, same-sex relationships, right? You see that over the past couple of years. Call Me by Your Name is like a film that
Yeah.
comes to mind. That I thought was a fantastic movie about young love and such, and discovering, you know, your first love to someone who is of the same sex. Whereas I think this one, it's just very rushed, and I don't know, I just didn't really think the story was that great, honestly. It's based on a book that was
Mhm.
written in 2012, I guess inspired by individuals in England. Uh, I thought it was interesting because it definitely had some similar themes to Fellow Travelers, but I enjoyed Fellow Travelers much more so in that like the secrecy of that relationship, whereas this was just it just felt like a few months and these guys got close, maybe a year tops, and then they just don't talk to each other, and then they just fast forward to modern day. And it's interesting how this relationship was just so poignant for the two of them, but yet they've been quiet. But they go through Patrick's journal, and Marion reads his journal entries, and she's able to really immerse herself into like going back in time and when they first met and when they fell in love. And I think that was really nice. And just the flipping between in the past to modern day is pretty similar to what they did in Fellow Travelers, but I think there was too much of a gap of time, which was unbelievable, where he would have so much love for him years later. Whereas with Fellow Travelers, it starts in the 50s, but they're romantically involved the 50s, the 60s, I mean up until like the AIDS epidemic, right? Like they are in each other's lives for at least 20, 30 years romantically linked, whereas this was a very short-lived relationship, which I think was, I don't know, not as believable perhaps at the time. So, or just in general, I thought it just wasn't as believable that meant that many years later that this guy had such an impact. And why did he stay with his wife for all that time? Maybe it was just feeling a little bit of guilt that he had his wife act as his beard for the first year or two of marriage. And hey, I guess I'll stick with you because why else should I continue? I'm a policeman and I can't obviously find another guy because I'm going to lose my job. So I don't really know in that sense. I didn't read the book, so maybe that kind of discloses more. But I mean, good cast overall. I mean, Rupert Everett
Mhm.
is a longtime actor. He played Patrick, and the older gentleman who played uh, Linus Roach
Yeah.
played older Tom, and then Gina McKee played older Marion. So those three characters have a younger version and an older version as well. It will flip between the past and present. So not the best. And yeah, you're right, the 45% for the critics, and you said 90s for the
Yeah. high 90s
the
for the
greater
audience.
audience. Yeah, which is interesting. So, I mean, beautiful scenery if you want to see like what the countryside of England looks like, just very nice overall. But yeah, I didn't, I wasn't upset when it ended. I was just like, okay, that's fine. They embrace each other at the end. Like it's more of just like it ends on spoiler, acceptance at the end of the day. Like, all right, I'm gonna
So
spend my later years together. Go ahead.
yeah, two thoughts. I think Rupert Everett might be gay in real life.
I
I think
believe he is.
was
Yeah.
in only reason I know who he is when I had a girlfriend and back in the day and I was forced to watch I think my best friend's wedding. I think he's the guy in that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
But the other question I had is you had mentioned you've seen Harry Styles in movies and but you haven't seen him lead in anything that you really liked, I think you said. I've only seen him in one movie. Or actually no, I've seen him in
Don't
two
worry,
movies.
darling.
Exactly. So what did you think of him in that?
I don't think he had as much of a lead role in that. I mean, he played the husband, but he ended up being like an evil guy.
Right.
What we find out towards the end, he's the one who's putting Florence Pugh, excuse me,
Yes.
in that like sort of
Dream State.
sim dream state world when she's really the breadwinner and he's kind of not to her level. Is that a nice way of saying it? Sure.
Yeah.
She's the successful one, and that he puts her in that dreamlike state. So sort of like traps her in this alternative world while he works. And by works means he works in the real world. So and then visits at night in this fantasy
Like I'd say it's Chris
Smallville
Pine.
world.
It's the Chris Pine, Florence Pugh, and Harry Styles. I'd say they're the three main
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
And then you might throw the director
Olivia
in there.
Wilde.
Exactly. So, but
Mhm.
so for me, like I don't know, like I just I I didn't mind him. I actually
Yeah, he
I
seems
forgot
fine
him.
so far.
Yeah,
He's
I
fine, but
forget
he's
he
not
was
like, yeah.
yeah. So no, yeah. If you can make me forget you're a pop star, then that to me is to your credit.
Yeah, that's
For
something.
sure. Yeah, I'd like to
Whereas
see him in
Justin,
other roles.
it's fucking Justin Timberlake. Like the whole time you see Justin Timberlake, it's fucking Justin Timberlake, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think he has, I mean, hopefully he's casted in more roles down the line for sure. I think he will be just since I think he's the most successful One Direction
Oh, I
member.
don't know anybody
Yeah.
else from that group. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least musically he's gone the furthest. And I mean, he's the only one that I know that's been in like any films that are worthy of talking about, or at least any like big films that have come out in theaters. So yeah, I hope to see him in more content down the line. But yeah, this film, I don't know, didn't really do it for me, I guess. And it's a shame because, again, I had high hopes for it because I enjoyed Call Me by Your Name and Fellow Travelers. And this is a different spin on a same-sex relationship between two men in Europe. So yeah.
Last question. So since you seem to be intrigued with the whole same-sex thing, at least with men, did you get to that that episode of Black Mirror, Striking Vipers, where they're playing a video game?
Yes. Yeah, we talked about this. That
The
was, I
video
think,
game,
one
my
of the
bad.
first ones. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one of the first ones. Yeah, that was definitely a surprise at the end, that's for sure. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was with was Michael B. Jordan in that, or no? What's his name was
No,
in it?
it was
Sorry.
Anthony Mackie
Yes,
and
Anthony
the
Mackie.
other guy who's everywhere all the time, Yahya Abdul-Mateen. So
Okay.
anyway, they're the two main characters. Well, the premise
Right.
of it, of course, is they're buddies, they're boys, right? And they play this video game, and in the video game, like one is Ludi Lin, Asian actor Avatar, and the other Avatar is Palm Clementif. And by the way, I fell in love with Palm in
Oh
that.
yeah.
And they're fighting each other, but then basically they end up like hooking up in the video game, dude. And so Kevin, how you've seen it, it's such an exploration. Like, okay, so if you're playing in a simulation, okay, and you get with your buddy, but you're different sexes as avatars, like what does that make you? Like, what's going on here? And
Super
Yeah.
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 Kevin's like, it makes you gay.
Well, we talked about this, Andrew,
Oh.
after watching it. You're like, we were just saying, and what if that actually ever ends up becoming a thing?
It's
Oh,
gonna be a thing.
I
It's gonna be a
guarantee
thing.
you.
People are going to seek out, and you'll find people have these secret relationships more than they do now, but yet they'll log on and honey, I'm just gonna put on my headset and I'm gonna play
Well, I guarantee you it's happening
Mario
now.
Kart and I'm gonna hook up with Peach tonight, and Peach is really Bob down the street. Like we don't know.
I guarantee it's happening right now. Like I
Totally.
I play an online game that I don't play often, but I've been playing the same game, Final Fantasy 14, for 7 years. And you create a character. You can create that character. You
Right.
have different races you can choose from, genders you can choose from, all this,
Yes.
and then you interact with all these other people.
Mhm.
That if you're not playing with like headset and voice chat, like you don't know. Like if you're just typing in the chat, you don't know who you're talking to. You know, could be an
Yeah.
80-year-old woman down the street. It could be a 12-year-old, kid down the street. Like you don't know. Like so
Yeah.
I guarantee it's happening on some level already. Like 100%. It's not quite as interactive, right? Like this is like
No.
obviously
Yeah, it's
Black
everything.
Mirror, so it's definitely more advanced. But no, I guarantee this is happening.
Yeah.
So
But to answer your question, I think I enjoy learning about different love dynamics, especially the ones that are forbidden, because I think it's not talked about enough, and it's not something that now it's talked about more, but I think it's still pretty new content. One movie that I saw, this is before the pandemic, but it was a same-sex relationship between two women. It was with Rachel McAdams and Rachel Weisz, and they play two Orthodox women in England. It's called Disobedience, came out in 2017. That was very fascinating, knowing being a Jewish woman. Granted, I'm not from the Orthodox community, but it's one of those extreme, more extreme devout religious groups where they shun people in their community for being gay. And these two women have a past together. Rachel Weisz comes back to England after the death of a family member. And then Rachel McAdams' character, she's married to a man in the community, and you could just see the awkwardness between them and how they meet up in private, and have this relationship. So that was fascinating too, to see that type of dynamic and same-sex relationship in a very forbidden community where, I mean, this is modern day, right? It's not illegal, but you get kicked out of your community for having
Yeah.
homosexual tendencies or just any type of same-sex relationships or interactions that are not platonic, for that matter.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope your next your next experience is better than what you've told us about today.
Yes. We'll see. I'm sure there's always just like new content coming out, but yeah, for sure. And I hope Harry Styles finds another role that is, I don't want to say better suited for him, but a role where he's able to really thrive
I'm
and get
so
himself on there.
sorry. You're good at like creating questions in my brain. So
Okay.
I think I get the impression that when you see a character like be not nice, you actually kind of don't like them. Like you actually don't like, because you're Harry Styles. I asked you what you thought, and you're like, yeah, he turns out being an asshole. He's like, he keeps her the blah blah whatever. And I think with challengers, you're like, well, Zendaya's like a total evil person, and she's like using these guys, and all of a sudden, like, so my question to you ultimately is there a performance from an actor or actress, whatever, where they're evil, but you're like, damn, that was good?
Tobin Bell.
Yeah, but he's like, is he really evil? Like, I think Tobin
He's
Bell
got,
saw that because he has you know where I'm going. Like, there's a certain like morality in his stuff. He's
sure.
teach a lesson. Okay, we're gonna park Tobin. Anybody else who's evil that, and then I'm gonna let this go. Thank you, Kevin, for indulging me. Anybody else?
Like an evil character where I'm like, they played it well. Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, like, I'm not saying like Zendaya is a bad actress, but in terms of, I guess I'm a bit
Like, and then Harry
judgmental in
Styles
that
too.
sense.
Like, so would you say Harry Styles played that character just mediocre then? Like, because I just got the impression that you went right to the character's like personality, not his performance, and that's why I'm thinking, huh, well maybe
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I thought he did a fine job, but I mean, was he in the film that much too?
I
That's the
think
other thing
so.
too.
Yeah, he was like, she came home to him. That was honey. He'd make her. They have sex on the table. Like it was the total. She wanted him. Like
Sure.
he was the company man. He was trying
Yeah.
to like
Okay. All right. I'm gonna answer it. Barry Keoghan crushed it as Oliver Quick. He
again.
makes a good
I think
bad guy. He
yes.
makes a phenomenal. That guy is such a good villain. Between that, Kevin recommended the film to me, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. He is so good and it's scary and oh my God, he's so attractive, but I would like not want to be in a relationship with him because I'm
Hell
afraid
no
like he's
no.
gonna fucking kill me or just like put a curse on me or just like I don't know, but
So was
he's
he a
something
villain
of
in Killing of a Sacred Deer? I don't know. So was he a
Sort
villain in
of.
that?
Sort.
I love
I
that. This
mean,
sort of shit. She's picking
is
these ambiguous shits. I'm
well.
sorry. Like
It
I
depends.
feel
It
like
depends on what side you take because, who is the dad? It's not Russell Crowe. It's
Colin
uh,
Farrell. Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. Um, like as the story goes on, like Colin Farrell was not good to this kid either. So like the give and
I
take
think he
there,
tries to be, but he's
like
more of a like out of guilt, right?
sort of, yeah. So like they're both kind of bad. Like Barry Keegan is definitely the less good of the two, but he's coming from a place where shit didn't go his way, and it's at least partly because of the things that um Colin Farrell's character did. So, you know,
it's like in Sulfur, no one's really like good.
Good.
Like,
Yeah, for
yeah, they
sure.
all suck in
Yeah.
Saltburn for sure.
I just rewatched it the other day and I was like, this is so good.
I was actually, me and Saloni talked about it today. She hasn't seen it. So I'm like, she's like, would you see it? Like, if I'm like, hell yeah, like I'll watch it with you. So,
So good.
yeah, I think she'll like it.
I enjoyed it the second time around too because I picked up on things that I didn't
Yes.
pick up on like the first time. Um, I mean, including the scene that like really stood out in my mind was when they did karaoke. Do you remember the scene where they did karaoke and Farley chooses like this really interesting song for Oliver that basically says like I'm a bitch and I'm gonna like
Yeah, I remember
continue to take and have you pay my rent. It was like I forgot the song, but it was like pay my rent and I'm gonna take all of these resources from you. And then he's like, Farley, why don't you just join the song too? You can relate. And then he sings it too, and it's basically showing that they're like, pardon my French, but like sucking from the same tit, shall I say,
Sure.
of wealth that's coming from this Catton
Yeah.
family. And it's like you're both like people
Leeches.
pleasing exactly in this sense. So it's just funny. And I didn't really pick up on that in I think the first time around as much. It was more just like, oh yeah, they're being idiots and are drunk and are singing karaoke. And then the second time around, I missed that. Remember, we were kind of breaking it apart and dissecting it. Andrew, you said, oh yeah, do you remember the line where Felix mentions that he did something inappropriate with the cousin? I didn't pick up on
Yes.
the first time around, but I heard it the second time around. He
Yes.
just like casually drops that he did something with his cousin, and it was
Yes.
like, okay, weirdo.
Yes. I remember that. I heard that the first time and I'm like, man, what? Yeah,
Like
it was weird.
casually drops it, very weird. And then just watching the death of the daughter, the whatever her name is, V, something with a V. Um, she ends up, quote unquote, committing suicide, which we know is not the case. He straight up kills her in the tub. It makes it look like she has suicide. But even just him like seducing her in such a way and how like mischievous he is, he's purposely like pinning all of them in the family against one another.
Mhm.
in such a way too. So yeah,
I
I'm
think by
curious.
the end he's dancing around. He's in a twisted way. He's the hero of the fucking movie in a twisted way, you know. But anyway, but no, thank you for playing. I mean, really, we may continue this, but I
For
just
sure.
I just enjoyed kind of like getting it a little bit into
My
your
mind.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize, like, I don't know if I would necessarily say like everyone's bad is a horrible performance, or I shouldn't say horrible performance, but I guess I definitely lean towards the moral, the
Yes.
moral storylines.
Or the moral, yeah, like yeah, you don't want to celebrate the performance of someone who is like straight up horrible, I guess, which I think is
Correct. Yeah, perhaps.
All right. Well, with that, Andrew, do you want to talk about the bear real quick since you finished the whole thing?
I was actually thinking we're gonna end it because this has actually been a good 2 hours. So
Yeah.
I think we save it.
Okay, we can save it. Yeah, because I haven't finished it yet either. So
Exactly.
so that'll work. Cool. Well then, we covered a lot. Then I will say to everybody listening, everybody watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.